So I want to speak to, I guess, both sides of this group a little bit. And I want to start with speaking to the folks from Jewish Voice for Peace. And I really mainly want to speak to the Jews in the room, my fellow Jews. But before I do that, I want to speak to one particular aspect of this that I think is really salient and important, and a great question that people who are against this statement are asking, which is, why Israel, why not North Korea or Syria? And I believe that the answer to that, and I think it is the right answer, has nothing to do with military aid. It has everything to do with the fact that there aren't police exchanges that I know of with Korea or Syria. And the statement is very explicit in saying that we oppose all militarized exchange with other militarized police forces. But there are these exchanges with Israel, and we have had our police chief participate in them. So that's the reason, that's what's different. But let me now I want to speak to the folks from Jewish Voice for Peace about kind of what my experience of the last month has been with your campaign. Maybe longer than a month, maybe it's really been several months. As far as we know, former Chief Lopez did one training with the Israeli police. And from that one training, I feel like the folks in Jewish Voice for Peace have worked hard to give the impression that Durham's police department is intimately involved with training with the Israeli police. And I feel like you've sought to blame Durham's connection with the Israeli police for racially biased policing in Durham, and you've cited lots of incidents of purported police misconduct to support the claim. I feel really strongly that this is a basic misunderstanding of how racialized policing happens in America, including in Durham. We live in our own country with a history of racial oppression in all of our institutions. And the problems with discriminatory policing in our country, which have been enormous and which continue to be enormous, have virtually nothing to do with Israeli society and everything to do with our own. I have received lots of emails from people living here in Durham, good people, many of whom I know, which includes the following paragraph from an email that was sent out by Jewish Voice for Peace, and these people have been sending to me. I'm proud to live in Durham, and as a progressive city, we have no place training the police with the army of any state that has policies of occupation and apartheid. I want to make sure this does not happen again, so I'm asking you to take a stand. I probably got 50 emails that said that. It pains me that so many people are being given the completely false information that our police have been training with the Israeli army and that this should not happen again. This is so untrue. Our police have not been training with the Israeli army. There's no factual basis for that. There's not even a rumor about it, except for this email. And it's so damaging to the police-community relations and everything that we're trying to accomplish. The truth matters. It especially matters in the era of Donald Trump. And no desire to win political advantage justifies making up stuff that isn't true about Durham's police department and then spreading that truth all over God's creation. Attacking our police department through falsehoods is only going to hurt our ability to continue the police reforms we are undertaking, and is going to hurt our ability to build trust with our community, which is being told that our police have been training with the Israeli army and that this must not happen again. And I want to stress just for a minute those police reforms. I want to say what the statement says, just so you'll get it. So in the last few years, especially in the last couple of years, the number of traffic stops in Durham have gone from 33,000 to 11,000. The number of searches in Durham in the last 2 years has gone from 1,200 to 400. The number of drug arrests in that same period of time has gone from 1,200 to 600. These are real reforms that are really mattering. And one of the ways in which we make that happen as a city council is to have the backs of our police department when they're doing the right thing. And our community has to do the same. And every time you attack them falsely, you undercut our ability to win their trust so that we are able to support them in their reform. The other thing is this. I think that these kinds of exaggerations and sometimes falsehoods are damaging, my friends in Jewish Voice for Peace, to your own cause in another way. In this case, they drove a group of rabbis, a varied group of rabbis, but some of whom are very much against the Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, to write a letter claiming that you were demonizing Israel and denouncing your efforts in this petition. Those rabbis who wrote us, I know most of them, they're varied. We've heard tonight, they're varied ideologically, but there are rabbis on that list who I know well, including my rabbi, who I have talked to about this in the last few days. There are rabbis on this list who are against this policing, this policing connection. But yet they wrote us a letter denouncing what you all had done because they felt that you were saying things that weren't true. And so I would just say that telling the truth has really important positive effects for what you want to do and the political movement that you want to create. If you want to make change in the American Jewish community's response to what is happening in Israel and Palestine, then you have to be truthful. Remember who we are as Jews. I'm 67. 6 years before I was born was the end of the Holocaust. The Holocaust wiped out half of us on Earth. And the prelude to the Holocaust and what made it possible was the lies that people told about the Jews and the ways in which the Jews were blamed for Germany's ills and the ills of other countries in Eastern Europe who participated with the Germans. So of course the Jewish community is sensitive to the lies that are told about us. And of course they have a special resonance. So I would just say again, it isn't contact with the Israeli police which has created racialized policing here in America. We have done that bad thing all on our own. Mm-hmm. To my friends in Voice for Israel, I understand as well as you do, maybe not as well as all of you do, but as well as many of you do, the emotional ties that bind us to Israel. I've traveled to Israel twice. Speaking of the Anti-Defamation League, my grandfather was president of the Anti-Defamation League in the southern part of this country for many years. I understand its value. And I understand why the Jewish Voice for Peace petition and accompanying rhetoric is so upsetting to you. Truth can't be a casualty in this discussion, and I would say to the folks in Voice for Israel, that's also what's disappointing to me in your campaign. So I'll just mention a couple of things. In emails and a recent column in the Herald Sun, you have tried to delegitimize the process that has brought us here tonight. You misled people in this column and in the emails into thinking that there would not be an open forum to discuss our statement, that this was somehow orchestrated with Jewish Voice for Peace or somebody else, which couldn't be farther from the truth. If it was orchestrated at all, which I suppose you could use the word orchestrate, it was discussions that we all had in ones and twos over a couple of weeks to try to figure out what to do. And I did have a statement ready at the last work session, and it did go to the media, but it wasn't anything but the same kind of discussion we have on every issue. and then to be followed tonight by a wide open forum where everybody got to say absolutely what they wanted to. This has not been fast-tracked, as you have said, or anything other than a thorough and fair process in which all voices have been heard. In fact, I believe it's been an exceptionally open and patient process, and any implications to the contrary are false. And also to my friends in Voices for Israel, it isn't true, as you have said, that the council publicly sided with those, this is a quote, the council publicly sided with those who falsely accuse Israel of training the police to, quote, terrorize Black and brown communities here in the U.S. The statement does not have any language like that, and you know it. I was impressed by my colleague, Jillian Johnson, at the work session when she explicitly rejected that assertion, and some of you all were there to attend that. The council statement has no rhetoric, anything like that, yet you have publicly and repeatedly says that it does. I know this issue stirs strong emotions. I can't even describe to you the emotional roller coaster I've been on about this in the last few weeks. Believe me, I get it, but it doesn't help to say things that aren't true in order to whip up support for your side. So I'll say one thing that I have been really thinking about myself in terms of, you know, what do I have to say in terms of really being honest about this and the way this statement is positioned and that sort of thing. And one thing I will say to a critique that Adam Goldstein offered tonight, and I've heard before, it's no question that Chief Davis' entire statement says that she had a positive experience in her training with Israel. There's no question about that. When we put out the statement, when I mailed this, I don't know if I mailed it or I handed out the statement to the press. I also provided Chief Davis's entire letter. But I do think it's important to say that. I also take Chief Davis's words at face value that she has no intention of having police exchanges with Israel. She is a very direct and strong person, and our statement endorses that stance. I agree with that stance. And I know that is where I differ from you, my friends in Voices for Israel. As our statement says, we want our police to have the kind of training that promotes the police work we are trying to do here in Durham under the leadership of our truly outstanding police chief. And might I also add, under the leadership of our city manager, who hired Chief Davis and has really made this happen. I don't believe that training with the Israeli police will further that kind of policing. And I also believe that there are other countries, training with other countries that have militarized police will not help as well either. If it happens that there is a possibility of that, I'm sure that you will hear the council taking a stand on that. I am a Jew and I am a Zionist. I believe in the existence of a Jewish state. I fear for its survival. But I know the terrible traumas visited on us as a people. We are now visiting on others in Gaza and on the West Bank. And to me, not only are our mortal souls in danger because of that, but I also believe that the survival of the Jewish state is dependent on doing justice to the Palestinians, and I do not believe that we are. And when I say we, I include myself. So that is the context in which I view this statement. And I have appreciated everything I've heard tonight, and I'm now going to ask if there's a motion on this statement.
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the statement. Any more discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, will you please open the vote? Close the vote.
The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.